major incidents like murders, things like that. Not like this kind of stuff here today, but occasionally they ask us to come up and talk to people and just see what's going on.
Yeah.
So we understand that you're staging a protest and you're concerned about logging, water rights, and roads being built in the area on Perry Ridge.
We're just trying to live.
Okay.
And it's more about the fact that Sinixt people still exist in Canada is saying that their political status is extinct, and that's not true.
Okay.
And it's been far too long that that's been going on, and the general public around here thinks that it's ridiculous. The local MLAs think it's ridiculous, and everybody thinks it's ridiculous that the Sinixt people are continuing this like extinction status and not having basic rights, and so we're just basically trying to defend human rights.
So, and just I'm not trying to be adversarial here, but you understand they're saying the Arrow Lakes ban was extinct, not the Sinixt people, and there's several Sinixt people that are still surviving.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I'm aware. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
Sinixt
the
people.
Arrow Lakes band is the Sinixt people.
Yeah.
And again, there's different. It seems like there was different bands. No,
terminologies.
It's just a terminology. The Arrow Lakes, the Arrow. You know where the term Arrow Lakes came from? How it was about? When David, I don't know if it was David Thompson. There was arrows in the cliffs at Revelstoke when they came down. These big arrows, I think, Robert? That's what Bob explained in the high cliffs, and they called it Arrow Lakes.
See, I used to work in the cusp, and you found a lot of arrowheads, and I understand there is a deep native heritage all the way through the area. But again, no surviving band, and again
But the band is a legal status, right? And you can't determine that human beings are extinct when you know they're not, and they're admitting that.
Well, I think they said the band was extinct,
but the tribal group exists. But then you can't deprive that tribal group from, say, accessing their traditional territory. The borders, like preventing people. There was legislated acts that happened through the colonial government, the turn of the century, and through the BC legislature in 1894, 1896, where they tried to legislate, the fact that, Colville Indians couldn't cross the border. All part of this long, colonial history that most people would rather go on, and we're just trying to figure out how Sinixt people can continue in their life, their cultural ways, having access to their territory, and have somebody actually listen and stop just turning a blind eye to it.
Here's a chair there.
Oh, I'm good actually. Okay. I'm okay right now. I'll pull it up.
And I understand that. Just so you know, I am a small part Métis, but I am a part of the Louis Riel Métis Council out of the Lower Mainland.
Yeah.
We just got a huge decision in court, and they're going to look at how Métis people throughout the nation have access to traditional rights because of the deep history in Canada. Now, I grew up Polish. I didn't find out about my Métis heritage till later on in life, so I'm not going to sit here and pretend that I know a hell of a lot about Métis, but I understand for my kids, you'd like to leave a legacy, and that may take a while for it to work out.
But
so
Sinixt have already been working for...
That's what you're concerned about, right?
Yeah, and the fact that there's people been working here through their traditional leadership, their traditional family structures that have been operating here for 30 years, trying to apply for these legal rights, and Canada's been ignoring, just sending back ridiculous legal definitions saying, oh, you're not Aboriginal peoples of Canada because you're not Indians according to the Indian Act.
Yeah,
but
I know.
all that doesn't really matter when...
Don't get me started on the Indian Act.
When human rights are being...
It's all messed up.
So then Canada's violating... If they continue to subject Sinixt people to an extinct political status, they're in violation of Canadian law and international laws. And that's what we're saying, is there's the law guarantees human rights. And so there's cultural rights, religious rights, and what's going on here is a total...
Genocide.
Genocide.
It continued genocide. I mean, they wouldn't have extincted the Sinixt if they didn't exist, right?
Yeah.
So there's no question that they exist.
And they admit,
Yes,
and
no, I agree.
There is no question. They're a status band in Colville tribe.
no,
We're sitting with one right here.
one of the biggest archaeological sites in the whole interior plateau is right at the base of the hill, right
Lemon
here.
Creek, they
Is
just
out.
took the children there, right? It's 3,000
Yeah.
years old. The Okanagan was full of ice. Well, this was opened up by the Columbia River. But just, and I'll shut up here. Mike, his first name Mike. Like I got the same kind of heritage as you, Métis. I found out about 14 that my dad, who's an Anglo-Saxon, says, you're crazy when you drink because you're a fucking Indian. Excuse my language, Jamie, but that's the way
Oh,
we talked
okay.
at the hunting camp, and my mother's a squaw. But she was so afraid of being a squaw because they took your children.
Yeah.
Okay, so I mean, so you and I have a similar thing, not Polish, but my mother looks like an Indian,
Yes.
but she was ashamed that she was an Indian, right? So, and there's Native people that were up here the other day, and somebody came up and they're hiding, and I'm sitting here and I'm thinking, why is that Native guy hiding? You know what I mean? Like he shouldn't have to hide. And anyways, we're just trying to be humans, and I hope that this little parlay here, we got the Ministry of Natural Resources. I'm
Yeah.
trying to explain to people we got so many levels of bureaucracy involved now with the forestry. We've got BC Timber Sales, we've got forestry, and then you are the tree police, I call you.
The tree police, as it were, got sucked up into this world of natural resource operations. So
Okay.
the Ministry of Forest doesn't technically exist anymore. The only people that fly that flag are BCTS.
When are you going to get a gun? Jeez, like a conservation officer.
They don't need them. No, believe me, they're talking about that now too. And there's a lot of us that are thinking, well, we didn't start this to get into that.
I'm just
end of
teasing
it.
anyways.
Yeah, but it's the way it's going. The government wants to go that direction. So they're looking at provincial constable status for us now and a bunch of other things. But who knows where that's going to shake.
So just back to this and Dennis, because he's got this international. Dennis has been doing a lot of
Well, it's
international.
It's not even
law.
international. It's Canadian now.
Are you Dennis?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Canadian
the guy. Remember I
law
told you
now.
Dennis, you left the phone
Myself.
message.
Nice Keith Ronspees.
Oh yeah.
And your name is?
Robert.
Robert?
Yeah, Robert. Yeah.
These were the guys I met. Remember 2 weeks
Yeah.
ago? They came up and we've met. Or I met Mike
Yeah.
when we were stopping pesticides, the other chemicals. But
Yeah, and we want to make sure that you guys have your right to protest, have your right to assemble.
We just want the human rights, so we don't even. We're not talking about that. I'm not talking about our legal right. I'm just talking about our rights as human beings that every human being has to be able to it's.
If you were to go about getting what you want, how would you do that? If you had full control over how to get these human rights back, what avenue would you take?
Well, they're already there. They're supposed to be guaranteed to us. So then if Canada tries to deprive them, anybody involved in depriving those human rights is then guilty of these laws.
Right. But I'm
Whether you're just doing your job or whatever, it's all that stuff that they.
right.
That they
I'm just wondering from our aspect here, what can we do? What's gonna
we'll
what are
create
you
a
looking-
dialogue with the loggers and stop the injunction. So we have a chance to talk. Because right away they push the injunction, right?
Just right now there's no injunction in place, and the injunction's on hold for now. That's why we came to talk to
Okay,
you.
cool. It's
Because-
Mike, right?
Yeah, I'm hoping that we can work it out. They
Yeah.
can do these guys, they're family men, they're going broke by the day.
Yeah.
And, I'm trying to listen to both sides. I respect your right to assemble, I respect your right to protest, but they also have the right to use or to log up here. I mean, I know we're sitting on opposite sides of the fence. We want to see you guys get what you want. We want to see them get what they
Well,
want.
why are they going broke? They've logged the country into hell.
You know what?
So they're not going to log anymore and be unbroke.
Yeah, but
They've logged all the easy trees. How are they going to, these are the last guys standing. So I don't buy this family man thing. The Ministry of Forestry pushed them to the injunction. There was no injunction. There was no tender. There was no nothing until this. Right?
They knew there was going to be
Actually, the Ministry
controversy.
of Forest isn't getting the injunction. It's the logger himself.
Yeah, but they gave him. He didn't have the tenure until the thing here.
Yeah.
The
Through
Ministry of Forestry got an
BCTF.
injunction against me. They don't want to do it themselves because the people getting sued by the government looks funny in court. The judges don't like it, so they're using the contractor as a patsy, the same as they did with Jeff Mattis, to put him up front so we get a police officer. Oh, the poor logger's going broke. I don't buy it. He drives a fucking $80,000. Excuse my language. $80,000
Yeah.
truck. Do you see my truck down there, Mike? He ain't going broke. We can all pretend we're going broke when we're so wealthy, right? Because if you've got a lot, you don't want to lose it.
And I apologize. I didn't mean to get you upset.
Well, no,
Obviously,
Mike, but
it's
I'm
it's a
here for.
contentious
I'm
issue.
almost 60
Yeah.
years old. I've been in handcuffs,
Yeah.
doing this. The guys ain't going broke. I don't feel sorry for them, Mike. Like you.
There's
say,
less
oh,
work.
the poor
There's
log-
less people working. There's no mills. There's
We'll
like
put the
nothing
people
for the
right here
local.
picking
There's
berries.
nothing for the
I
local
think the point is,
community.
you know,
And
we've
it's
got,
our water, it's our fisheries, it's everybody here. It's like Sinixt, all the Sinixt people here, they all have a say. The government says they have to consult with First Nations. They say the Sinixt Nation is a First Nation, but then they don't consult.
And they get other
So,
native groups to
if
sign
by
off.
law it says they have to consult with First Nations, and they say Sinixt Nation is a First Nations group, then why are they not following their own law?
I think where that comes in, it's bureaucracy, and where you're recognized in the food chain. And unfortunately, they say, well, look, these are the rules. Here are the people we consult with.
Yeah.
And Sinixt is not one of them right now. It doesn't mean that's going to be like that forever, right?
I know, but while all these things go on and logging and like it's like all these archaeological,
Yeah.
all the village sites are at the bottom, but people just didn't live in the bottom. They climbed all the way up here. People have already this year alone. There's already been 3 people up here fasting and vision questing. Like elders are coming up to pick berries and stuff, and it's like the first time that they've, without a court-ordered thing saying open up the gate to let these people come and be on their own land. Let the people from the community pick berries. There's been a
Europeans are
gate
still
locking
afraid
out
of the pot last year.
400 plus
Last
people
Europeans-
stood on the road from the community saying that they didn't want a road here. A road got built, and then the community got locked out. And it's supposed to be something that's woodlots managed for the community.
Yeah.
And it's like, there's 500 people saying we don't want it, and bulldozers just plow them through, and they do what they want, and that's depriving people of their basic rights. So,
And the loggers don't have a job. There's no mills. They're
Yeah.
selling the raw logs. It's a joke. I mean, the naked emperor's like really naked.
There,
and like no, but the Sinixt, like the one thing that everybody from Sinixt has been, it's like everything they want to do here is for that community. They're like, they do everything thinking about all, like the children's children, right? For a long time in the future, thinking about a lot of stuff from the past. They try to put it together in applicable ways, and if our society today could honor and respect those traditional values and the fact that there is a different way you could do this, and if everybody kind of slowed this progress down and said, hey, everybody doesn't have to go get a job at Nelson Walmart, and maybe there could be small mills all over the community with hundreds of people working and
We could
wood
have a mill
staying
up here,
in the
Mike.
community.
The Sinixt would be open to that
It's
dialogue, right?
obvious
Mill,
there's
start taking stuff
alternatives.
up here. There's just no
Could
more
in-
road going in without a protest.
Could
I mean,
include
that's
the
what-
First
we can cut to the
Nations
chase
whose
here.
territory it is and who is
Well, we can make
recognized.
jobs,
It's like BC Hydro just met with Sinixt Nation 2 weeks ago over dredging the Groma Narrows. BC Hydro's consulted with Sinixt Nation for the Ministry of Forests, Natural Resources, BC Timber Sales have all consulted with the Sinixt Nation over the years and recognized all those groups. And it's like there's 300 plus people signed on from Sinixt down the south to the Sinixt Nation here. And then there's even more people who just don't really want to sign on to anything and are just like, I'm just Sinixt. And yeah, it's a shame what's happened to our history and what's going on to our people.
This one here's like the Pace Ridge right here, huh?
Yeah,
That's the road coming
that's
up.
like the ridge
You
line.
guys keep driving up here, you see the clear cuts. I can believe it.
Yeah,
It's
if you look
huge.
at
Yeah.
like even on just look at on that level. This is Pace Ridge right here. And you just look how that's all. If you ever flown over to any of the area, you'll see it all the way here to the coast like that.
Oh, I've seen the from the air and the cuts everywhere.
Yeah,
I
if
get
you
it.
really look at it, then this is like for the people to live, this is for them to work, this is for whoever, this is for the mines, this is for the logging company, this is for these guys. These guys logged all this off down here, so he moved up here. Now he wants to log all this off up here because he would open up a wood lot there, but they logged it all off. You know what I mean? This is the water for our community, it's water for him. We got village sites down here. You know, that's just, they haven't even done exploring this side. There's even more on this side, and it is affected from the sediment. They showed that,
Okay.
you know.
Yeah, there's a bunch
And
of
they've done all kind of, you know, whatever, get all kind of experts to say that that won't affect it. But then if you actually look at the, I'll actually even go get you a map of the Lemon Creek. Is like right about here. Now, I'll be right back just to show you that on our village.
I just
side.
really hope, you know, because for 30 years, Mike, I've been involved in this since 1986, and I was, you know, when we stopped the spraying Agent Orange in Meadow Mountain. You can look at the front page in June, and I was just following my girlfriend, who was quite pretty, you know, she was an environmentalist in Caslo, but the military wanted to spray 2,4-D Agent Orange on all of BC's clear cuts. They would kill people. We stopped it. It was evil. It's like so evil you can't believe it. And it was the minute you could see the front page of the Nelson Daily News. It was an American helicopter pilot flying this thing, and he's yelling at us as he's coming up on the Meadow Mountain. If it wasn't for you fucking hippies, we would have won the Vietnam War, right? And it turns out later that it was an experiment with a military chemical to use in the forest, coming out of the Sault Ste. Marie Forestry Office. We can't allow them to destroy our children. We can't allow them to destroy our water. And it's a corporate fascism. Mussolini said it in the Second World War. You know, corporate fascism should run the world, and they are. So, you know, when like I said, by coincidence, I'm in 86 following my girlfriend, and then I'm reading the thing. I'm going, my God, this is an experiment with one of the most evil chemicals, 2,4-D, Agent Orange, right? Vietnam, right? So there's very little trust in the grassroots.
Yeah, no, don't. I'm not saying.
And we stopped it, Mike. I wouldn't
government.
be here today if I didn't think it was going to be effective. You know,
Yeah.
in '86, our MP at the time, a conservative MP, took it to Parliament. We stopped the Ministry of Forestry from spraying those chemicals. It was the beginning of an experiment to spray all of clear cuts in British Columbia, or as many as they thought. You know, aerial spray like they did in Vietnam, and we stopped it just because they wouldn't get an injunction because they didn't want to be exposed through the courts that they were working for the U.S. military. If you look up Gagetown, Nova Scotia or New Brunswick, these gentlemen might remember, right, where in 1959, they used Agent Purple first. The U.S. military got the Canadian military to spray it near Gagetown, New Brunswick, right? And then the civilians went up and cleaned it up, and they're all dying. You look it up in the internet, Gagetown widows, they're called. And that was a military. Canada's a proxy of the United States. You know, I mean, I don't know who's worse, us or them. I don't know who's in charge, really. But, you know, when I look back at, you know, trusting the government and their processes, I don't have it. And, you know, I would say 60% of the people here don't either. I mean, most people are just complacent and, you know, like, we've got a good life. We're better off than the sub-Saharan Africans. So let's just, you know, go to the tar sands and work and come home and drive our big boats around the lake or whatever. You know what I mean? People have a right to enjoy life when life is enjoyable, but it won't be if we don't protect it.
Okay, what can I go away with here today? Like, how are we gonna be able to resolve?
well, there's a phone number that was put on the sign on the gate, and that's the contact for the spokesperson for Sinixt Nation,
Okay.
and that was basically like.
But again, I
It's
have
Sinixt
a limited
Nation.
amount of power and resources here. I'm just more of a spokesperson today.
Yeah.
Myself, and there's when I go back and say, look, this is what they stand for. This is what they're concerned about.
Yeah.
This is what they're, ultimately they want to be recognized as a band in the Kootenay area. I understand the Kootenays just received 242 acres around in the cusp
Tanaha.
area.
Yeah.
To build a gambling casino.
Oh, well, I didn't know that.
Oh yeah, that's what they want, a gambling casino.
Well,
Isn't that nice? That'll be great for crime.
yeah, that doesn't seem like.
That's what they're
it was
putting in
intended
the cusp. They're processing a thing for a gambling casino.
for. Okay.
But then that's like I say, that's like the government's willing to give all that land to the Tanaha when the Tanaha have no archaeological proof of ever living in the area ever.
Okay.
Ever over here. They have proof over the last however many hundreds of years that they occupied the east, but not over
Further
here.
down, like this Slhu7kin River.
So how come Sinixt aren't getting...
Slhu7kin Lake, Slhu7kin
Yeah.
River.
Yeah.
I agree.
Then this is where they had the Lemon Creek archaeological thing. This is last weekend. Had an open house to show the public. And this is like where the tracks go through. These are the ones they're excavating and doing studies on here. These are the ones they haven't.
Okay.
They just kind of been getting into these last couple years. then this
Watcher.
is like, you know,
Because he goes after
Yeah, don't get
77.
your finger in there.
I was
Yeah,
gonna say, I'm
yeah,
not
watch
reaching
it.
that
Like,
further.
don't let bees get close to you. It does snap. Don't land on your lap.
Hey,
There's,
just want to have something to do too.
see, in 77, see then how it already wiped those out, affecting those.
Yeah,
Then
he's a
how much,
sweetheart.
like,
He's
see,
a
those,
dog.
and those. Hasn't
Okay.
even been really studied. You can see definitely how that affected them.
Yeah.
Just in that small amount of time. And that's sediment fill in, and then just the rivers naturally change. But those are like quite old, like these are up to 3,000, you know, so they've survived that long without that
Okay.
effect.
I looked at the paper. There's one on the website, and I looked at the archaeological study, and it actually had the same, quite extensively, the amount of sites in the pit houses and stuff through the area. So, yeah, it's pretty neat.
Yeah.
I think, Mike, just to answer your question a little bit, what do you take away? Try to create dialogue. You know, I mean, that's
Okay.
more dialogue rather than more injunctions. You know, because that's what it's all about making a community work, is talking about the opposition parties talking together. I mean, I've got a family, he's got a family, same as the logger's got a family. You know, so when somebody throws out the family, you've got a family. So try to create dialogue before the injunction and tell them we'll create work up here.
Okay.
We'll find a way. The
Or it's
Sinixt.
just like, it's really about that key issue of just Sinixt having human rights in Canada, trying to say they're extinct and don't have any. You know, making it an issue for people crossing the border when it's like, or like making it hard for somebody like Bob Campbell, who's like been appointed as a spiritual leader, as the headman, as like, you know, as somebody that grew up like as a full-blooded Indian, knowing all these stories, knowing that his mother had like, you know, traveled up here her whole life. You know, it's not
We're talking
documented in
1910,
his.
you know, it would-
It's not
Quebec-
documented in history. Like every time a Sinixt family came up here to go berry picking, right? Like obviously everybody got pushed down south for whatever reason, but all since that time till today, Sinixt people have never stopped coming back here. And every family has stories of coming to pick berries, or like Bob Campbell's mother Eva, or she traveled by horse the whole ridge in like the 40s or something when she was young, and on the old trail that runs across the top. And
You know, and you write this down, the David Thompson Society is doing their 150-year celebration of down the Columbia. They
Or
didn't phone
200.
the Tanaha. The Tanaha were phoning them. They phoned Bob Campbell's because the name Sinixt is on David Thompson's thing. They didn't meet the Tanaha. It was David. I mean, that's history. Okay.
And then
There's
it's
no doubt
Sinixt
that the
people.
Sinixt were the people.
It's Sinixt Nation and Sinixt people who are the people who are going to the community events when the community is saying, hey, we want the First Nations community to come and welcome us, or do the openings for Jazz Fest and Caslo, for the Unity Fest happening at the end of the month, for
Yeah.
whatever, things all over the Kootenays.
Well, the PhDs in archaeology.
And they
are
call
telling you, it's not
they
like
call
they're making it
Sinixt
up.
Nation. That's what the people here, like all like people locally know that, you know, it's a really complex story, because there's been stuff that was written and then other people later were like, oh no, that's not actually accurate, and you got to actually go through it all. But when you go through it all, and that's what the archaeologists are doing today, the historians at Simon Fraser University, UBC.
You know, and then we got the gambling Indians coming over.
You go
'cause it's
talk to
divide and
people-
conquer. Rome Caesar did it with the Gauls and the.
I went and
it's not
spoke
a
with
new
the head
story.
archaeologist at the Royal British Columbia Museum in Victoria, and you know, all these professionals, the way that they all talk, they know the whole story of what happened to the Sinixt, and it's just got to stop.
Yeah, like I understand everything you're saying, and I undoubtedly there's not only like real proof. There's people to come and say like they're Sinixt and they can trace their ancestry and all those things.
Yeah.
But I think you know, there's at least a court case going on trying to get the Sinixt opposing the extinction status of the Sinixt or the Arrow Lakes band. Like I read that on the website last night, that that's all progressing forward. I guess what I'm here today, and again, I really appreciate all you sitting down and taking the time to talk to me. It means a lot to me. But I guess the smaller issue here is we have one person who has the license and another person who wants to log the property, and they're not being allowed access to do that. And I guess,
Well, come and talk to us. Maybe we'll work something out as time goes on.
okay.
You know,
I mean-
they've been up here. They cut the lock. They've come up. You know, he could come up.
But
At this point,
but then under the laws, like these laws, like the Rome Statute, right? Like that's
Okay,
that.
can you explain that to me? I've heard that come up a few times.
Okay,
but I'm
so
not sure
like
what you're
recently, because of all these like United Nations international covenants that they've been holding all over since
Yep.
like after the war with Germany in '46. Like after that, they started all these things, and they made laws around genocide, and different countries signed it, ratified them. They made different declarations, but it's the covenants. Like the Covenant on Civil and Political Rights, the International Covenant on Social, Economic, and Cultural Rights. All Canada ratified all those, and so that's underneath Canada's Crimes Against Humanity and War Crimes Act. That's where the definitions of these conventional international laws and the structure of the international court and the Rome Statute is the law of that court.
Okay.
Which Canada now operates under because they're obligated to all those laws along with all these European countries. It's not the same in the United States or Mexico, or
Okay.
I think Canada's the only one on this continent, that maybe somewhere down south, but there's some African nations, a whole bunch of different countries, like all the big countries, the G8 countries, are all obligated to these laws around basic cultural rights, religious rights, and just the pursuit of the human being as a human being, not as like necessarily as a legal entity like a Aboriginal person, but just as a human being, who they are and who they've always been. And if somebody's always been that here, then they have like an intrinsic right to be able to continue just doing that. And yeah, like doesn't mean that like you don't have to, but if people aren't respecting the fact that that law exists and that's a right that's supposed to be guaranteed, not one that's supposed to be argued about, but guaranteed to you as a human being, then as anybody who's trying to deprive that human being of being a human being is in violation of these international courts. So if it's like, it's basically under these laws, it's like nobody's pointing it out yet, but under these laws, the Indian Act is an apartheid system, and is Canada's in violation for operating the Indian Act in the way that it does, in that old kind of racist mentality. And that's an apartheid system under these laws.
well,
even.
South Africa learned it.
And Canada has only been dealing with has only been subjected to follow these laws since 2004, and on all the jurisdictional requirements and stuff, like the Sinixt Nation case fits all the jurisdictional requirements, and there's docket numbers open and for evidence, and basically what Sinixt were trying to do was create a dialogue before filing a case in the International Criminal Court in the Netherlands.
Okay.
Right?
So, and Mike, remember, Jamie, you guys wouldn't be here if we weren't blocking the road. The Sinixt could be having all of this legal stuff. It wouldn't matter, except that the Sinixt are the one Indians that haven't sold their souls to Satan. Like they're here protecting the water for us, and they have some legal leverage, whereas the average white person doesn't, right? If I go up and block the road, there's the Delamute thing that you have to consult. But because of 1956, we were damming up all this, it was convenient to extinct the Sinixt so you wouldn't have any legal things to deal with, right? So that a lot of people, lawyers, would say they were extincted in 1956 because all of these treaties were coming forward, right?
Yes.
And then you could dig up their graves in the Arrow Lakes and just send them off to Africa or to Britain and put them in the museums. So really, the issue is more than just, we're talking about their existence, but I'm here with the Sinixt. I wouldn't be here with the Tanaha because they're helping protect my water. We're not here, really, you wouldn't be here if the Sinixt were just going, we want to exist. And they were fighting it out in the courts, and 40 years later, they existed. But you're here because the Sinixt care about your children, her children, his children, and us, period. And they actually have some legal challenge they could put forward through in this young gentleman here. Like we were talking last night about, things that he's been involved in, with the loggers in the ELO who are beating up people, got away with it. I mean, 100 loggers, that's not happening. We're progressing, okay? And I'm hoping you guys will be a part of that progress. I mean, really, 1997 when we were protesting down at the bottom here. 6 pickup trucks come up full of loggers from the mill. Well, they're all gone, and they're all like, ready, hippies, hippies, hippies. Well, you know what? 80% of them come up to me, way to go. We don't even have logging jobs now. Sorry for laughing at you. So it's we're evolving, right? And I mean, I'm not